Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. We've got Emily Terrani here today. Hi, Emily. Welcome.
Hi, Alice. Thanks for having me here.
I'm very excited to have you here. So, Emily, please introduce yourself and tell my listeners who you like to work with. What kind of work do you do?
Sure. I'm the founder and lead coach at Mind Growth Lab, which is a coaching firm that helps business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs, rising leaders have healthy mindsets and the proper skills they need in order to be successful. And my secret sauce is blending psychology and research back, approaches and coaching techniques with things that you can actually put into application in real life. So I work with a lot of high achievers, people in all different industries, and a lot of what we work on is what are your mindset, what are the routines and the habits that you're engaging with, what are your values, and how are they either helping you or getting in your way.
Wonderful. And do you work with anyone in the country?
Yeah, all over. I'm based in New York, but I work with people all over the country and other countries as well. I can coach on Zoom, on phone, in person. So it's really cool because I'm able to work with people from all different walks of life, which is really fun for me personally.
Yes, I bet, especially when you're working with different cultures.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Emily, what is your negotiation question for today?
It comes up a lot with clients on how do you negotiate boundaries, especially when it comes to having relationships with people in your life and you're a caregiver. So a lot of my clients are the primary thing that we are working on is their career, but it comes up that they have, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a child, and they are the primary caregiver for this other individual and they are exhausting all of their own personal resources. So how can they, essentially negotiate and advocate for themselves what they need in order to be able to show up the way they want to?
That's a great question, and I'm really happy that you brought up something that's on the personal side, because as I mentioned earlier, there's so many different kinds of negotiations that we all have with our friends and family and that sort of thing, and it's sometimes because the emotions are involved, it feels more difficult. So that is number one that I want to point out. If you're going to negotiate with someone in your family member, number one, just make sure you are feeling calm. So that's rule number one. So don't even engage in a conversation unless you feel calm. Now, that being said, don't ever just be like, hey, by the way, Emily, like, can you stop doing this? Or like, you don't want to just like blindside the person either. So what you really need to do is you really need to set up a conversation beforehand. So I need to come to you. Let's say we're sisters. Let's say you've been breaking my boundaries. So instead of saying, can you please cut that out, right? Because all of a sudden it's going to be a fight. So you have to go a different way. It's going to feel very formal. It's going to feel kind of weird, but it will be significantly more successful than if you just do your old routine, which is, let me just tell them in the moment they need to cut it out. Or let me just hold it in, and now you're like building up resentment over time, right? And so it would look something like this. I'd be like, hey, Emily, I'd like to talk to you about the way we're interacting in our dynamics. And I'd love to do it in a space where we both kind of can sit down and have 30 minutes to an hour available. When is a good time for you to have this conversation? Right? And that does a few things. Number one, it gives you a little clue of what I want to discuss so that you can be prepared. Number two, it does not blindside you. Number three, it creates a container, right? A time and a date where we are both going to sit down with the understanding that we're not going to have distractions. We're not going to have kids that we have to feed. We're not going to answer the phone, right? All of these things are happening if you just suddenly launch into a conversation. So we're both going to be prepared and ready to talk within this time and date that we've set up. And it also gives everyone some time to reflect on what do they want to say, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you say to me, well, what exactly is it about? Right? And if I feel comfortable, I might want to just mention it. It could be something like, well, it was the way you spoke to me yesterday, or it's the way you speak to me typically. And it's totally possible that you might try to draw me into that conversation immediately because you're feeling a little triggered, defensive, what have you. So you might just launch into it. As the person who's coming to ask you for some time, I still need to make sure that if you're going to launch into it, that A, we both have time to have this conversation right now. If you are getting ready to go to work in 10 minutes and you start drawing me into this conversation and I follow your lead and we get into it, and the next thing you know, you're like, I got to go to work. All of a sudden, like and then you're going to be like, I don't want to talk to you about this. I'm done, etc. And then you feel like, wow, this failed. So you have to keep your wits about you and notice if you launch into it, I should not immediately follow your lead. I need to either say, hold on, Emily, I want to make sure that we both have 30 minutes right now to discuss it. Do you have the 30 minutes to discuss it? And also I might say, do you actually want to discuss it now? Because you're starting to, but is that intentional? Or did you just sort of just launch into it, right? Because it could be that you just launched into it because you're feeling defensive and that was not your intention to actually have the conversation about it now. Yeah? So put the brake on and say, hang on, is now actually a good time? Because if it's not, let's wait. Right?
Yeah.
So that's all step one. That's really sort of like a giant, big step one. Step two is when we have the conversation, we set it up. Okay, Saturday morning, 10 a.m., you and I sit down together for coffee, and I'm going to share with everything. Two things that you want to do. Number one, set ground rules. Hey, Emily, is it okay if I set some ground rules? Can we both agree that we won't interrupt each other? That's like my golden rule. Okay, great. And can we agree that we won't call each other names, or that we won't put each other down, or that we'll take ownership of our own, like how things are impacting us instead of blaming the other person? So set whatever ground rules you would like to set. Okay. And then I might lay out like, hey, I've noticed, like, I don't know, you're sort of, I'm noticing that you say things to put down my ideas, but I'm just curious, like, how things are on your side. So you want to try to get the other side's perspective first, even though you're the one showing up to complain about something. Because it could be you're going to get information that you did not have. Right?
Yeah.
Because if they're trampling on the boundaries, I still have 50% of the picture, which is my half. I actually don't know what your half looks like. I'm only presuming that you're being rude, that you're being needy, that you're, like, I don't know, taking me for granted. Like, those are all my own stories. That's actually not really the reality. So I should ask you, like, Emily, what's been going on? This is how things are impacting me. And I'm curious, like, what's going on for you? Get the full story, because it inevitably will change the way you approach the conversation because you have more information. Right? So it's like all these little steps to get to even, like, have the conversation.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like this approach sets intention and expectations. You're making sure that the other person is ready to receive the feedback or the difficult conversation. You're not just throwing it on them, and maybe they didn't eat lunch yet, or they have other things going on which could totally, change the trajectory of the conversation. And I love how you're saying to be curious, because in coaching, curious is such a healthy place to be.
Yes.
And it's helping to disarm any defensiveness.
Exactly. Because if you're feeling defensive, guess what's not happening?
Not having open conversations, right? It's not going.
And, well, the other person's not hearing you.
Yeah.
Right? If they're defensive, their amygdala is being triggered, and the amygdala is what triggers your, it gets triggered and it puts you into fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in fight, flight, or freeze mode, you actually can't think very well.
Right.
And so if someone's defensive, it is triggering the amygdala. And then now all of a sudden they're feeling defensive. They can't really think. And so if you can't think, you also can't process what someone is saying to you.
Yeah.
So I might be extremely clear and saying whatever I want to say. And this is what you're hearing. Right? Like there's like nothing really coming into your brain. And you might be responding, but you're not really responding to like what I'm saying. And you're not really hearing or processing or receiving my message.
Yeah. And that's really important because that defeats the whole purpose of having this conversation to begin with.
Exactly. And the other thing I want to point out that I've noticed that people are not super aware of is your nonverbal communication. Right? Because a lot of times people feel like, oh, I'm really good with my words. But your words are only 40%. 60% is nonverbal. So that could include your tone, your facial expression, your body language, the choice of words you use. And so if I show up and I'm speaking to you and you're my sister, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, Emily is so annoying. And let's say I'm thinking that in the conversation. 60% of my body language is going to be communicating that to you.
Right.
Right? And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden the conversation goes sideways and I think to myself, what went wrong? I used all the right words. I did all the things, but it went wrong somewhere. And I'm going to tell you, more likely it was your nonverbal communication. If you are thinking it, right?
Yeah.
If you're thinking it, it's being communicated. And so people always
catch yourself going there in the conversation.
You mean like if you're starting to think those things?
Yeah, how do you pull yourself back to center?
So, number one, try not to think judgmental thoughts, right? You can't be curious if you're being judgmental. But here's a really good trick that I like to coach people on. It's good to think about something that you really admire about that person to replace that thought. So I am not asking people to replace their thoughts forever, right? If you're my sister and I find you annoying, I'm not saying don't ever think your sister is annoying or don't ever think that your sister taking for granted. I'm saying during the conversation, don't think that thought. Try to just shut down that thought. And if it's helpful to replace it with you know what? This is what I admire about Emily. I admire that she's thoughtful. Well, focus on that while you're having the conversation because that will come across in your nonverbal communication. And if you, Emily, are feeling like I'm communicating like really good thoughts about you and I'm asking you to change that sort of thing, but I'm sharing things in a kind way, in an open way, in a non-judgmental way, the conversation is going to go much better.
Yeah. Our brain looks for proof of what we're already thinking. So if you're looking for ways that I'm annoying, you're going to find ways I'm annoying. And if you're looking for ways that I'm kind, you'll find that in the conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Because it's the filter. We have filters. We all have filters that we listen through, particularly when it comes to family members or spouses or children. So if I have a spouse who I feel like is condescending to me all the time and I put the condescending filter on, the only thing that comes through the filter are the condescending comments and patterns. And I'm actually tuning out anything else that does not agree with that filter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, the brain is only looking for the thing that it believes in.
Right.
So you want to, and we're human beings. We're not black and white. We're not like a piece of paper where it's like one side is one color and the other side is the other color. So people can be good and bad. So people can have good traits and bad traits. So just focus on the good trait. Focus on what, and it has to be authentic. It can't be like, oh, I like Emily's sweater. That is not what you want. You really want to think about the person and authentically think about what is it that you admire about this person, what you like about this person. Focus on that while you're having the conversation. And then it will go really well. And then you can make agreements.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What happens if you're noticing that maybe the conversation isn't going in the direction you want, or they're not hearing what you're intending to say. Any tips for that?
Yeah. So remember we talked about ground rules? So one of the ground rules that's really great is to say something like this. Hey, Emily, can we agree to repeat back what it is that we understood before we respond? Because, going into this conversation is going to be a difficult conversation. It's hard to hear each other, right? So then if that's the case, what we're doing is we're inserting like a half step. Normally, you say something, I respond, you respond, I respond, you respond. It goes like that. Instead, it's going to be you say something, I mirror it back and acknowledge what I heard you say. You're going to say yes or no. You're going to say, yes, that is what I said. And then I respond. And then you're going to repeat back what you understood and say, did I get everything, Alice? And I'll say yes. And then you respond. So we're trying to ensure the communication is very clear and being received.
Hmm.
Because if you're not actively listening, you will not be able to respond and say, this is what I heard you say. If I'm in my head about whatever it is while you're talking and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I can't believe here she goes. She's blaming me. I'm the younger sister. It's always about me. Let's say I have this running monologue going on while you're talking. And then you say, okay, what is it that you understood? I will sit here and say, I actually don't know.
Hmm.
And you're going to be surprised because I will do all the things. I'll be making eye contact with you. I'll be nodding, right? So the things that are like nonverbal, I'll be doing, but it's kind of fake because I actually wasn't listening. So
Yeah.
that last piece, the ability to mirror back what you said, is really the only way to determine that someone was actively listening to you and received your message.
Hmm.
If you rely on nodding of heads, eye contact, leaning in only, it's easy to fake that,
Yeah.
right? And so we won't know if the other person actually listened to us. And if you try to insert, hey, can you repeat back what it is that I said, like without setting the ground rule, it's going to be very difficult to police that.
Right.
You can only police rules that you set up before the conversation. You can't make